I have the lovely Daniel. Everyone say hello to Daniel. And we have the lovely Kara. Everyone say hello to Kara. And your bus's name is Jean. Now, Jean is our newest bus. This is my first day on it. This is her second day out, so welcome on board our newest guys. I don't know what's happening there. Oh, I think that way. Sorry, we were missing people, and anyway, sorry guys about that. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The bus's name is Jean. She's a 1960s route master bus brought over from London to take you around our beautiful city and serve you tea and coffee for the next hour. So guys, in front of you, you guys have some menus, and on them menus it has what you're eating today if you opted for our traditional portion, which most of you have had. If you had any dietary requirements, that would have been shown to you while you sat down. Also on that menu is all of our drink options. You guys can have as many of them drinks as you want in the next hour or so, as much as you can fit into yourself, I suppose. And what I need you guys to do for me is to have a look at that drinks menu, know what you want to drink by the time we get round, and then we can get lovely and sorted. Does that sound alright, guys? Now, a couple of things about the tour. This is a semi-guided tour. It isn't fully guided, so I won't be annoying you guys for all of the chatting on, lecturing you about Dublin. I'll just come up in bits and pieces and tell you my favourite bit about the city, some facts and what, oh my god, did you guys know this? And etc. like that. Where is some scones heating up for you? Usually people are looking around going, where's the scones? They're in the oven, they're heating up for you guys. That is what your jam, cream and butter is for, so save them for them. They'll come around halfway through the tour. Lastly, there is no bus on board Jean now, is there? So guys, if you do need the loo, we're heading up towards the Phoenix Park now. We'll pull over, we'll find you a bush or a tree or something like that. No, don't you worry guys, if it's an absolute emergency, we'll pull over and we'll get you guys sorted. A couple other things just to note, if everyone can just stay seated for the duration of the tour, that would be amazing. Your plates and your trays and your knives and your forks are on anti-slip mats, so let's keep them on that, because we don't want cutlery going flying around the place. I don't think that might not be as fun. And just lastly is to make sure we keep our lids on our drinks, because we don't want to be wearing our tea and our coffee now, do we? So guys, I'll leave you there. We'll come around and get your drink orders now, and then I'll come back and tell you all about the Phoenix Park in a couple of minutes. Does that sound good, guys? Perfect. Thank you very much, guys.
Phoenix Park, that whole place just kills my IT back. I don't know what it is. It was an insane place.
Alrighty guys, so I'm going to talk to you today about our first topic, and this will be about the Phoenix Park. Now we're just in the Phoenix Park now, and the first thing I'll get you to pay attention to is just over here on your left hand side, you will see the Duke of Wellington monument. It's one of the largest obelisks in Europe, and it was built in honour of the Duke of Wellington's win at Waterloo. So there you go. Now, the Phoenix Park is absolutely massive. It's actually the largest walled or enclosed park in all of Europe. And now I say that to you and you're like, oh yeah, it must be pretty big. But I'll put it into perspective for you like this. Central Park in New York could fit inside of here twice, and Hyde Park over in London could fit inside of here 5 times. So the park is absolutely massive, and it used to be even bigger. These stretch over the River Liffey to an area in Dublin called Kilmainham, but they had to make it smaller for the building of the Royal Hospital over there. Now the first thing I'll get you to pay attention to in the park is just here on your right hand side. You'll see some green fencing. Now that green fencing belongs to our very own Dublin Zoo. Dublin Zoo is the 4th oldest zoo in all of Europe. It was built in 1864, and it's home to over 400 animals of over 100 species, and it's one of our main tourist attractions. But when I'm talking to you about the zoo, beg my pardon, there's one animal in particular I want to talk to you about. Now, is people familiar with MGMG movies? Yeah, we all see it, the lion roaring at the start. Well, that first ever lion came from Dublin Zoo, and his name was Slats. Now, Slats had this reputation of being a big, fierce, aggressive animal, but in reality, Slats was nothing but a big old pussycat. He was so jet lagged from his flight over from Dublin to LA that they couldn't even get him to roar on set for MGMG. So, the next time you're watching a Mission Impossible or something like that, you can hear Slats roar in a Dublin accent, so make sure you're listening out for that next time, guys. Now, there's more animals outside of the zoo, of course. There's a herd of around 200 deer in the park, and this is because the park used to be used as a private hunting ground while we were under British rule for the nobles and the higher-ups and stuff like that. They obviously mustn't have been very good because the deer are still knocking around today, descended from that original herd. You can see them typically on the left-hand side. Now, I already told you how big the park is, so I can't promise a sighting, but they are typically on the left-hand side if you will see them. Now, they're very, very cute, the deer. They're so cute, in fact, that they'll walk right up to you looking for a bit of food. But don't be tricked into their cuteness, my friends, because if you're caught feeding the deer, you'll get slapped with a €250 fine. Yeah. Or at least don't get caught feeding the deer, I guess we'll say. Now, we're just approaching the halfway point of the park now. You can see we're going to go around the roundabout, and that will mark the halfway point. For any of my American friends on board today, if we look on the left-hand side, you'll see some white gates, that with the American flag on top. That is because that is where the US ambassador stays when she comes over here. She sleeps right here in the middle of the park in a lovely estate right there. Now we're going to drive around the roundabout, and if you keep an eye out on your left hand side, we'll drive by some more gates of her very, very famous neighbour. And her neighbour is no less than Michael D. Higgins, our very own president. Them gates right there are the gates to Áras an Uachtaráin, which translated from Irish literally means House of the President. A very literal what it translates here in Ireland, guys. So, I don't know if any of, maybe some of my Irish friends on board, they can certainly tell you what Michael D. Higgins looks like, but for anyone that doesn't know what he looks like, he's about 4'5", he's a very short man, and everywhere he goes, you can see him with his 2 giant Bernese mountain dogs. Sometimes we even see him walking through the park, and people find this very hard to believe. They're like, where's the police, where's the security, the snipers? Lads, this is just Ireland, he's just a man walking his dogs through the park, you know what I mean? His dogs are actually called Brode and Mishnach. Now, this is the Irish for, not freedom, it's pride and something else. That's how good my Irish is. Courage, there we go, thank you very much. If you just want to look on the left-hand side, we can see Áras an Uachtaráin right there, with the flag flying high. Now, does anyone think that building looks like another famous white building, perhaps? It looks a lot like the White House. Now, if you're thinking that, you might be right in saying so. because the man who designed the White House was actually an Irishman. He came from County Kilkenny down the countryside, and some say it's not a coincidence. Some say he took inspiration from his very own president's house when designing the White House over in Washington DC. So there you go. Just a little fact, there's actually been more other famous heads of state who have lived in that besides our own president. Winston Churchill actually lived in the park from ages 2 until 6, and he described the years as the happiest years of his life. And the last fact I'll leave you with today, guys, is that if you know anything about Dublin, you know we're a Viking city. It's very deep and rich in our heritage. But did you know that the park is actually the largest Viking cemetery outside of Scandinavia? There you go. There's about 40 Viking bodies were discovered in the park. Of course, at the time, it wasn't it wasn't a cemetery or anything like that. It was just a field to dump some bodies in. But there you go. Largest Viking cemetery outside of Scandinavia.
Oh.
Now, guys, I'll leave it there for you, and I'll be back up in a minute to talk to you all about Guinness. So thank you very much for listening. Okay guys, now the next section is going to be all about Guinness. But sure, what would a tour of Dublin be if I didn't talk about black stuff? Now, just over there on your right hand side, if you look across the River Liffey, you will see the Guinness Storehouse, St James's Gate. That is St James's Gate over there. And here in Ireland, we love our Guinness very much. We love our Guinness so much, and we're so very proud of it. But another man, Arthur Guinness, was also very confident in his design and invention. So confident, in fact, that he rented that property over there for 9,000 years. That's right, guys, not 90 or 900, but 9,000 years. That's a very confident man, if I've ever seen one. If you do the Guinness Storehouse tour, when you walk in just at the first entrance, you can see in a big glass case the original lease. But yeah, 9,000 years. Like I said, here in Dublin, here in Ireland, we love our Guinness. It's like our national drink. But despite the fact that we love it so much, we're not actually the country in the world that drinks the most Guinness. Now, I don't know if that's surprising to you or if that makes sense. Maybe you're thinking, you know what, you're a tiny little country with 4.5 million people, and of that 4.5 million people, how many of you are actually of legal age to drink the stuff? But despite the fact, we actually come in a very respectable third place. Now, I'm very proud of that number. Like I just said, 4.5 million of us. How many of us can actually drink the stuff, you know what I mean? But would anyone like to take a guess as to what country drinks the most? I'll start downstairs and I'll go upstairs. Any guesses downstairs, guys? Germany. I see we're going with beer drinking countries. It's not right, it's not right. The USA. That number one guess I get every day, and it's wrong. The UK. I'd like to see the confidence. That's also a really good guess, but it's wrong. Yeah. China. We're going with numbers. No, guys. I'm going to have to go upstairs and put you out of your misery. Upstairs. Any guesses, guys? Number one drinking Guinness country in the world. Africa. Bang. Over here. Nigeria. All the points go upstairs. Nigeria drinks the most Guinness in the whole world. And maybe you're thinking, that's a bit random. What's going on in Nigeria that they're drinking all this Guinness? Well, it will make sense when I tell you that the largest Guinness factory in the world is where? It's in Nigeria. There you go, guys. Now, obviously, over in Nigeria, the Guinness is a little bit different. It's also a lot stronger. It's 7.4% or something like that. So careful with that one, knock the socks off you. Now, the largest Guinness factory in the world is in Nigeria, but we also share another thing with the Nigerians as the Irish. We actually share a same patron saint in St. Patrick. So that's why over in Nigeria you'll get a lot of people called Paddy and Patrick, and you get that here in Ireland as well. So there you go, guys. Now, to put you out of your misery, I'll give you the top 4 list of the Guinness drinking companies. I'm sure you're dying for it. So first, obviously, we had Nigeria. Second is the United Kingdom. But that's all of the United Kingdom I want to point out instead, so maybe that can count as cheating a little bit. In third is Ireland, and in fourth is the United States of America. Now guys, I just want to say, the Irish, we have considerably smaller population, so maybe you want to bump them numbers up because we're really killing you, I'd like to say. Now, Guinness, not only is it a fabulous drink, I do say so myself, but if you were working for Guinness back in the day, well, you were set for a very good job. And think back, you know, when Arthur Guinness just started the factory, no one really cared about employee rights at all. I think that was a turn of phrase that people might have said.
So this may taste
but you know who did care about you? Arthur Guinness did. If you had to move from the countryside up into Dublin City, well, you would have been given a house for free. They were one of the first companies to offer a pension. If you died, they would have paid for your funeral and gave your wife a widow's allowance. And they were one of the first companies in Ireland to let married women work for them. Now, I didn't know this until we had people on board who actually worked for Guinness, and they were telling me that, which is actually a really big thing in Ireland, because married women weren't allowed work in Ireland if they were married up until the late 20th century. So that was a really big deal. Now, unfortunately, and I nearly forgot the best benefit of them all, how could I? Is that after every shift, you get 2 free pints of Guinness.
Isn't that
pretty good, isn't it, guys? I only get tea here, so it's in the TVs. Now, unfortunately, the same type of benefits aren't around today. Maybe you don't get the house, you don't get the funeral. Maybe some people might get a pension. They do, of course, let married women work for them. I feel like that would be a really bad legal battle if they didn't let married women work for them. And you're still getting your 2 free pints of Guinness. So, listen, I take that by
Good place to put them.
Now, I don't know, has anyone on board ever heard the phrase Guinness is good for you? Anyone heard it? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of my Irish friends on board have heard of it. But here in Ireland, we took it very, very literally. Now, for context, Guinness is a stout and it's very, very high in iron levels. So I want you to keep that in mind when we're talking about it. So, back in the day, pregnant women would have been encouraged to drink Guinness so they get their iron levels back up. If you had some sort of low iron deficiency, like let's say anemia, you could be rocking up to your pub with a prescription for Guinness saying, "Barman, give me a pint of the black stuff now there." And if you donated a pint of blood in the day, what would you get afterwards? Well, a pint of the black stuff, yeah. Now that one didn't last very long, not despite obvious reasons, but the fact the same people were going back every other day trying to get free pints of Guinness. So they ruined us for us all, unfortunately. Now guys, that's all I have to tell you about today for Guinness, but I'll give you one little fact about it before I go. And that's that they say Guinness is good for fertility. Now this one doesn't actually have any scientific evidence to back it up, other than the fact that Arthur Guinness and his wife had 21 children. That woman was pregnant for over half of her life, which I'm sure was barrels and barrels of fun for her. So, drink your Guinness responsibly, my friends. It might be more powerful than you might realise. Now guys, in a moment we'll be coming up with your scones, so sit tight for them, and if you need anything else in the meantime, give myself and the guys a shout. Thank you very much. Alrighty guys, now I'm back to talk to you all about O'Connell Street. As you can tell by the Garda car, it's probably one of them streets in Dublin. It's the main street in the city centre, some people might say. And we're about to drive down it now. We drove back up. We drove up it just a minute ago. And the main thing I want to talk to you about on O'Connell Street is maybe the thing that sticks out the most. And that'll be the giant metal needle-looking thing that sticks out in the middle of the road. Now that giant metal needle sticky thing is called the spire. That's what us dogs know it as. We would call it the spire around town, but officially its title is the Monument of Light. We built it to commemorate the turn of the new millennium, but building didn't actually start until late 2002 and it wasn't finished until 2003. So there you go. Better late than never. Now it's called the Monument of Light. You think that maybe you might think, I'm sure they must light it up all the time. You'd be wrong in thinking that. And then you're thinking, and then we've only ever lit it up once. And then you're thinking, well, if you've only ever lit it up once, maybe it's for something really, really important. Like maybe St. Patrick's Day, or something special to commemorate our country, like a national holiday. Well, you'd be wrong again in thinking that, because the one and only time it was ever lit up was for the premiere of the new Star Wars movie in the local cinema. It was put up like a giant lightsaber with like the handle of it around the bottom made out of cardboard. It was the deadliest thing ever. You can see the base of it there. It's kind of hard to miss whenever you're in town because it's a giant metal pole that's about 400 feet sticking out the sky. Now just across from it here, if you look across on the right hand side, you'll see a big building with pillars in front of it. That is called the GPO. The GPO stands for General Post Office. And it's a very, very important building in Irish history. It's where a lot of the fighting and rebellion took place against the British, especially in 1916. I'm not going to talk about that now because there's no point in getting political over a couple of scones, is there, guys? But if you want to learn more about them fateful and bloody days in Irish history, you can go into the GPO and they have a really brilliant museum on it. And it's also still a functioning post office that has great postal service, so you can still get some stamps if you need be. Now, on your right hand side, if you look out, you'll see this giant statue. Now, before we usually move off quickly, so what I'll first get you to look at is the four angels. You'll see the angel looking right at you pretty much. Now, this is going to sound rude, but I want you to look at her breasts. And the reason that is because you will notice there's a hole in her left breast. And that is because, like I said, there was a lot of fighting that took place on the street. And while the British and the Irish soldiers were so bored waiting for something to happen, that they started taking target practice out on the poor angel's breasts. So now she has that very unfortunate placed hole. Now that statue is to represent Daniel O'Connell, who the whole street is named after, and the four angels represent each province in Ireland. Previously the street used to be known as Sackville Street while we were under British rule, and previously before that it was known as Drogheda Road. So there you go. And one last fact about O'Connell Street is that I'll leave you before we go, is that O'Connell Street is actually the widest street in all of Europe. Now I'm sure I'm telling you that you're like, that can't be right, like you're thinking the Champs-Elysees in Paris or maybe Alexanderplatz in Berlin. But no, O'Connell Street is the widest street in all of Europe. So when that question comes up on a pub quiz and you get it right, well sure you'll think of me, won't you guys? If you're getting used to the city, you want to know the layout, right in front of you is Trinity College. We'll be driving around it. It's a big grey building. A lot of our famous laureates and Nobel winners and authors went to Trinity College. And just as we drive around it in a minute, you'll see the old Parliament buildings, but they now belong to Central Bank. You'll notice them, they're a big white building, kind of round in shape, and they have lots of pillars in front of it. And actually, just as a little fact, the man who designed them is the same man that designed the White House over in Washington, James Hoban. So there you go, guys. I'll be back to talk to you all about George and Dublin, but until then, just enjoy your scones and sit back, guys. Thank you very much.
Scones are delicious.
Into the
School of Nursery and Midwifery.
Midwifery.
Midwifery, yeah.
house for ages, but it was freshly built, kind of a penthouse apartment. Yeah,
Also, I had no idea, other than the Guinness Factory and the Book of Health, what there was to see. So, yeah, I was just like, well, okay.
Okay guys, welcome to George in Dublin. I'm going to be talking to you now all about it. But first I get into that, I want to point out the beautiful Marion Square Park on the right hand side there, one of the 5 inner city parks, my personal favourite. If anyone's around on a Thursday lunchtime to be specific, there's a World Food Market. So if you're looking for a bit of lunch, you can stroll up to the park, have a nice bit of food. If the Irish weather's on your side, maybe sit outside under a bench, not under a bench, under a tree, on a bench, usually helps, and have a nice bit of lunch. Now, George in Dublin, when I'm talking to you about, I'm going to talk to you about the architecture of the buildings that you'll see all around you. The Georgian period in Dublin is the same as the Georgian period in England because we're on the British rule. So all the buildings are pretty much built to look exactly the same. British Power is a uniform example for these streets. They widen the streets, that's why they're nice and wide. And they make there's a specific code for the houses to look like each other. But there's a couple other things that they took into mind while building these houses. Now, has anyone seen the show Bridgerton on Netflix? Usually we have a few people that have seen it, yeah, maybe upstairs, I'm sure we do as well. If you haven't seen the show, a brief synopsis of it is that it's a show about a gossip column set in Georgian England. And everyone in the show knows each other's business. They kind of seem really wealthy. They haven't got any problems. Life is so perfect. And that's what life was actually like in Georgian Dublin and Georgian England. People were so obsessed with seeming wealthy and perfect, and nothing was ever going wrong in all of this. They really wanted to be showboats about their wealth. So I want you to keep that in mind for a bit of context while we're talking about the houses. Now, just out of interest today, the houses are still very nice and expensive to live in. One day, googling the housing prices, just being nosy as I like to be, one of the houses around here was going for 5.9 million euros. And if that's the cheapest or the most expensive, well, I wouldn't imagine the rest are much cheaper than that. So as a Dub, most of us know we'll probably never live around George and Dublin. Now, the first thing I'll get you to point out, best to look on the right hand side because they're nearly built, is the window. If you look on the right hand side of the street when we come now, you'll notice some yellow doors. Them yellow doors belong to the Institute of Education, which is a secondary school or high school, if you will, here in Ireland. So teachers were said to have yellow doors, doctors had red doors, and a solicitor or a lawyer would have a blue door. This was so if that you were in trouble, you would know whose door to knock on. Oh no, I'm bleeding out. Who do I knock on? The fellow with the red door. That was the idea behind that one, guys. And the last one has to do with a bit of tongue-in-cheek humour, so please go with me on that. If you know anything about Irish history, you would know we're a very rebellious type of people. And when we were on the British... Hello, there we go. New bus, new electronics, you'll have to bear with us, guys. While we were under British rule, especially under the rule of Queen Victoria, who was ruling in George and Dublin at the time, she was known here in Ireland as the Famine Queen. She wasn't very well liked because of the Great Potato Famine here in Ireland. When her husband, Prince Albert, died, the Prince Consort, she asked everyone in England, in the United Kingdom and Ireland to paint their doors a dark colour, like a black or a grey or something like that, as a sign of respect and mourning for the late prince. Us being the rebellious kind that we did, we said absolutely not, and we painted the brightest colours that we could find, the yellows, the blues, the greens and stuff like that. So guys, as I said, one's not more true than the other. Whichever tickles your fancy, that's yours. Go home and tell everyone about it. Now, unfortunately guys, we're going to have to say goodbye soon. We're about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on traffic, away from Temple Bar. And then I'll give you only have one more bit of information, a couple more stories to tell you about in a couple of minutes, and that'll be all about Christchurch. But guys, if you couldn't finish anything today, me, myself and the guys will come around with takeaway boxes. And before I forget, because I usually forget at the end of the tour to tell you, but them blue cups are yours to keep, guys. Our little present to you. Go home, fill them up with wine, beer, tea, coffee, whatever you want, we won't judge. So guys, we'll be around with takeaway boxes now if you need, and just hang loose. Thanks very much.
That is a tough one.
Yeah.
Okay guys, back to talk to you about our last topic of the day, and that will be Christchurch. Now that's not Christchurch over there, that's St. Patrick's Cathedral. It's the largest cathedral actually in all of Ireland. I know quite a lot about it because I went to the school right beside it. So I'm not going to talk about that today, fortunately, because I've spent enough of my life talking about St. Patrick's. What I will be talking to you about though, however, is Christchurch Cathedral. Now if you drive up the hill now or drive over it, and you'll get a lovely beautiful view of the church. The church in 7 years is said to be about 1,000 years old, so it's a very, very old building. And over that 1,000 years, we have collected some very weird and strange artifacts inside of the church. That being, our first one is our very own Tom and Jerry, or Itchy and Scratchy if you will. And the story with this one goes is that a cat is chasing a mouse through the church, as they like to do sometimes. They're chasing each other through and they go into the organ pipe and they get stuck in the organ pipe. Years later, the caretaker finds them perfectly preserved and mummified, and here we were high-fiving each other like we had the best idea ever to put them on display. And now you can see our very own Tom and Jerry on display in the church. And they're forever immortalised by James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. So if we have any Joyce fans on board, that is what it's for. Now the other weird thing that we have on board, in the church, is a human heart is on display in the church. And the heart belongs to our former Archbishop O'Toole, And it sounds a bit strange to say we have a human heart on display, but it's actually very common practice in Ireland to take your priest or your bishop, your archbishop's heart, and display them in a church. Now, the weirder thing about having a heart on display is the story that goes behind it.
Okay.
And the story is that about 10 years ago, someone stole that very same heart from Christchurch itself. Now, I don't know why a thief would want to steal a heart and ignore other valuables, but sure, let's see, that's what they did. They had the heart in their possession for 6 years. Until one day, on Gardaí Síochána, our police force here in Ireland, got a phone call saying, hey, there's a heart under a bench in the Phoenix Park. If you want it, come and get it. And guys, I told you how big the park was. That's a lot of benches to look under, isn't it? Eventually they found the heart and there was a note explaining why the thieves were returning it. And the story goes like this, that every year they had the heart in their possession, someone in their family died of a heart-related illness or disease. So I don't know if you believe in curses or hexes, but that sounds like a pretty convincing one to me, my friends. Why they didn't notice the correlation before the 6-year mark, I don't know. Maybe they're waiting for a bit of inheritance or something like that. Who knows? But the heart is still on display today, but if you are going to see it, please leave it where it is, guys. Unfortunately, that is all I have to tell you about today, guys. We're just around the corner for Temple Bar. We'll be dropping these back off. I want to say thank you very much, guys. This is my first day on board Jean today, and you have made it very smooth sailing. So thank you for coming on board this little rainy balloon Saturday afternoon. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you have, I hope you don't mind me asking you a couple of things, if that's okay. Firstly, is that if you enjoyed it, would you please leave us a kind review online? We're a small, female-owned company in Ireland compared to the other tourism companies, so it really does help us go a long way, keeping the bookings coming in and stuff like that. If you really, really like the tour and you were going to leave us a kind review, please do include our names. It's good for our egos, if nothing else, and so our bosses know we're actually doing our job. So once again, guys, my name was Nicole. We had the lovely Kira and Daniel downstairs helping us. And if you're writing a kind review, well, you can't forget about our bus driver, Liam. Because if you forgot about Liam, well, we'd be stuck in Temple Bar for the last hour, serving you, flinging tea and coffee at you. And I don't think it might have been as fun. If you really, really, really like the tour, donations to the private Guinness Fund, well, they're always welcomed but never expected, my friends, so don't worry about that. And lastly, if you didn't enjoy your tour today, well, my name was Rebecca. Thank you very much.